Welcome, listeners and viewers, to this day in sport. I guess we can just call everybody generally audience. Welcome, audience.
Yeah,
Yeah,
That'd really be
works.
more popular.
I think it will work.
Yeah, I don't think we can say ladies and gentlemen anymore.
Today's Tuesday, December 12th. We have our holiday party here at JRN 210
It's about to get
newsroom.
lit.
Yep.
We're gonna have some pizza, some gift exchange,
Yeah.
all of that holiday merriness.
Why don't you stop by and the show?
Yeah, come on by for
Yeah.
come on by for a
Yeah,
slice
just
of
a
pie.
quick second,
LC 416 at Scottsdale Community College. Come on
Yeah.
by. Hey, speaking of the holidays, this is going to be our last podcast. We're community college kids, so we're not going to be here during break, or at least most of us aren't. I will. So we're probably not going to be on the air for
I think it's a month.
several weeks. Yeah, it's going to be about
we come back January
like
16th,
mid-January.
something like that.
January sometime when we get back. So don't look for us until then. We got to take a break and stuff.
Just binge it if you can.
Yeah.
Before my birthday.
There's a couple other people in the studio with me today, as you can tell on microphone number 1, Ethan Cohen.
What's up, party people?
Oh yeah. Next to him, Thomas Bonvehi.
Ayo.
Howdy, Thomas.
Ayo.
Are you filled with the holiday spirit today, both of you guys?
So much fantabulous.
But
Nice.
I'm rocking this for a reason.
Okay, you got your soccer jersey on for a reason.
I got a bunch of Hanukkah presents. I
It's
got
almost
some
been a
new
year since we
Jordans.
won the World Cup. So
Okay, who's we? AFA.
Argentina.
Okay,
Yeah,
I don't know who that is. I'm not a soccer fan.
It's
Sorry.
It's a country
Okay, well,
in South America.
Leo
Okay.
Messi.
great.
All
That's
right.
great. I'm
Did
sorry.
you know?
We had
So
a second
sorry.
Is that on the map?
Really so sorry. Listen, my name's Ole Olafson. We've got to get on with the podcast, even though we would love to talk more about geography at this point in time, but we don't have time for that. This is a 2-part podcast. The first part is the 2-minute warning, as everyone who listens knows. Then after that, we come up with the big part of the show, the main event of the morning. But that's later.
Yeah.
Wait, not yet.
Yeah, that's later.
Stay tuned.
Right now, we're going to do the 2-minute warning, which is a timed 2-minute piece. I'm gonna get my timer ready, and then we decided in pre-production that no, we didn't, but I have decided right now that Ethan is going to go first because he is on microphone number 1. Let me get my handy
Favoritism.
2-minute timer going, and
Okay.
begin with your 2-minute warning.
All right. So this Saturday.
I think it was Friday.
It was announced that Shohei Ohtani is officially a Los Angeles Dodger, and he got the most ridiculous contract I've ever seen in my entire life.
What was it?
10 years, $700 million.
Wow, that's a lot.
Yeah. So for reference, Brock Purdy, if he stayed on his rookie contract for the rest of his career, he would have to play 519 years to make up Shohei Ohtani's contract.
Wow.
Yeah, it's just a super cool stat.
That's
But
crazy.
I think he was insanely overpaid, especially coming off of a torn UCL. I got a partial tear, but he has a full tear. He had Tommy John, and he's had it before. I think it's super risky. Plus, he's already 30 years old.
You think he's damaged goods?
No, I think he's still gonna be a terrific player.
Okay.
I just think he's probably not gonna be able to play 10 more years with 2 Tommy John surgeries on the belt. And say he's not playing in 5 years, they still have to pay him $70 million.
Wow.
That's an insane risk, even for a guy like Shohei Ohtani, as generational as he is.
Do you think he's going to be the same player?
I think as a hitter, he's going to be able to be terrific his entire career, but I don't think he's going to be able to pitch for that much longer. I mean, you can't really throw 100 and play every day. It's ridiculous that he hasn't gotten hurt sooner. And the fact of the matter is, he's never been to the playoffs, which is crazy to me because they had Ohtani and Trout. And I think injuries catch up to everybody.
All right.
Okay, that's good. You finished up with 8 seconds to spare.
Yeah, the whole
Kudos.
making fun of me in pre-production.
Right, I didn't have to.
I think it got to you.
I didn't have to cut you off. Thomas, Thomas, you wanted to talk a little bit about the AFC playoffs.
Yeah.
Why don't you go ahead, starting now?
Well, the AFC playoff picture, it is like crazy how it's going. If you take the 6th seed and the 11th seed, that's 5 spots in difference. In between all of that, they're all 7-6. And even then, the 5th seed is only 8-5, but they're on, I believe, their third stringer or backup. I know they have I know the Browns are starting Joe Flacco. They sit in the 5th seed right now.
That's
but
so awesome.
yeah, still.
I love that.
Man's like 40,000 years old and he's starting.
There's so many injuries, which it is annoying to see. I mean, Justin Herbert, he's likely going to miss the rest of the season. But, I mean, it's
a
still
broken finger?
I believe so. Yeah, he broke his middle index finger. But, I mean, this is the year of the backups. And the playoff picture, I mean, you're 7-6. You should be sitting in the 7th seed, and your team is all the way down in 11. I mean, this is going to come down to the final day, in my opinion, unless 3 or 4 teams just collapse. But I mean, we still got 4 games, which is a ton.
Then again, them
Jets plenty of time for people to collapse.
Yeah, I mean, the Dolphins blew a 14-point lead, and I believe they're now 9-4, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
And
they got the Jets next week
against the Jets. I mean, Chiefs have lost 2 in a row. I mean, every team is around that 9-4, 8-5, or 7-6 in the AFC. So it's anybody's game.
What's your gut feeling on it?
I think
who's winning or who's getting
when it all filters out after the next 4 games, who do you think's going to come out on top?
I think it's going to come down to who stays the healthiest. So
I have Baltimore.
I think Baltimore.
I think I'm going to go with Baltimore. They have finally just stayed healthy, kept those pieces, and they're going to get over the top in the AFC.
Zay Flowers is a stud.
True.
Zay Flowers. Janet's calling. That's our editor-in-chief. She must have forgot that we were going to be recording podcast.
Is she yelling at you about the ice?
I don't know. I'm not sure yet. Is it time for my 2-minute warning?
Yes.
So.
All righty. For my 2-minute warning, I'm going to finish up talking about the NCAA Division I ladies volleyball final. Oh, forgot to turn off your timer. Shoot, I got all flustered. All right.
You shouldn't be flustered. You're standing now.
I know. I'm standing. I'm trying standing up in this podcast. My 2-minute warning is going to finish up with the NCAA Division I women's volleyball tournament. The semifinals are going to take place on Thursday night at Amalie Arena, as we talked about a couple of weeks ago. There's 4 teams left. Nebraska is going to take on Pittsburgh at 5 o'clock on Thursday evening. And Wisconsin is going to go up against the only number 2 seed that came through Texas at 7:30. This is going to be a chance. The reason I wanted to talk about this for sure was that this is going to be a chance for my team, the Nebraska Cornhuskers, to come through and avenge their only loss of the season in a big way, okay? The only team that they lost to the whole entire year was Wisconsin.
And
Wisconsin's going to be in the opposite bracket. Both are number 1 seeds. They're both regional champions. I think that what's going to happen on Sunday, December 17th at 1 p.m. is going to be that Nebraska goes against Wisconsin and avenges their only loss of the season. On November 24th, they played, and Wisconsin beat them in Wisconsin, not back in Lincoln. But I think that it's going to work out as a storybook season for the Cornhuskers, and they are going to come out on top and avenge their only loss. It's going to be a storybook finish. All right, that is the 2-minute warning for today. We each finished our piece in less than 2 minutes. Good work, guys.
There's a first for everything.
I know there is a first for everything. We are going to take
a chance last week.
We're going to take a very short break. We went over on our 2-minute warning piece last week because we were a little too talkative. Anyway, we're going to take a short break, and when we come back, you know what's going to happen. Hey, everyone. Want to make a difference in your community? Become a reporter. Join us at Scottsdale Community College in JRN 210, News and Media Production. Why take classes that make you snooze when you can report the news? Enroll now. We're back.
Smooth.
Thanks for that. I just pulled that one right out of the air. Well, the saying at the end, I did it. I had that.
I know.
Yeah, I've got
That
that's
was
actually
practice for years in the mirror.
It was. It definitely was.
it's actually posted on
My day.
the door of the small recording studio. So I have that out there. Anyway, oh boy. It is time for the main event of the morning.
Shout out Bruce Buffer.
Nice.
Did it that time.
Everyone, not everyone, there's many people in the US who play fantasy football, and there's many people who learn something every year. Hopefully everyone does. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about what we learned during the fantasy football season. Since fantasy football is in its last week, we're going to start our playoffs next week. I can tell our listeners all that we are none of us in the championship bracket in this room. We were all in the consolation bracket. So when you fail, you should learn some stuff. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So what we're going to do today is just try to pass on some of that knowledge that we may have gained to our audience who plays fantasy football, and maybe it will help them next year as well not to fail. Okay? Why don't you, Ethan, why don't you go ahead and start out telling us about what you learned this year?
I learned that if I want to play fantasy football, I need to become a trainer, because oh my God, I got so many injuries, like Justin Jefferson, T. Higgins for a lot of the year.
Oh my God.
In another league, I lost both of my quarterbacks. So, like, honestly, well, one, there's a strategy to fantasy football. You need to draft well. It's all about drafting talent to me. But the other thing is you just kind of gotta hope that everybody stays healthy, which almost every year does not happen. And waiver wire pickups ultimately save your season. And it didn't for me.
I agree. I mean, people who picked up Puka Nakua after the first week saw, his breakout game. They just kept him for the rest of the year. I mean, I think I either waived or just did a small trade for Raheem Mostert, and I've used him ever since because he's been so explosive. But the biggest thing is we like to laugh at teams because I technically started last year, but drafting is so hard. And we like to laugh at teams like the Bears for, oh, you passed on Mahomes, but drafting is so hard. I drafted Nick Chubb and Saquon Barkley. Nick Chubb gone in week 2. I traded Saquon for Amon-Ra because he wasn't being very productive. He was being injured, I think, for the first 3 games, but he has come back.
That's a very different type of draft.
I know it is a different. It's a terrible comparison.
Nick Chubb, when you've seen his NFL career, is very different than scouting a quarterback in college.
True. Also, don't trust anyone. Don't tell anybody who your sleeper pick is. All right.
Well, yeah.
Oh, that's actually a good life lesson as well.
Yeah.
Is trust no one.
Yeah, trust no one.
Really? Terrible life lesson.
I think I mean, the sooner you understand that you can't trust anyone, the better off you're going to be. You know what I'm saying?
I'll tell you.
I'm sorry, Ethan, but especially in fantasy, you can absolutely not.
No, yeah. I mean, a guy
in most things, to be completely honest.
A guy was bragging.
Yeah.
He didn't specify which player, but he's like, this player is gonna go off, and I'm gonna take him early, and you guys are gonna be so jealous. And then someone was like, oh wait, he said he had a sleeper pick, and so someone else picked him up right before his pick, and it was Tony Pollard.
Sure, right.
And
I accidentally gave away my draft strategy, which is one of the things I learned about this year. But I accidentally gave away my draft strategy. I told one of our league players my exact draft strategy. No. This is quite a long time ago. And then that person obviously took the person who I was going to take with my 3rd pick. So you don't ever do that.
I did that this year, and I got really lucky that they were like, yeah, you can do whatever. All right. Because I told them I'm taking Nick Chubb and Saquon, even though I had like the 8th pick, which was complete last. So I had to pray everyone picked a wide receiver. And I did. Well, besides Travis Kelce.
Right.
But
Yeah.
So
He goes way
I
too
was
high.
nervous.
So we're
Yeah, Travis was a bit
this
For what the
league,
tight end position is.
Yeah.
our Northeast Valley News League in particular, is a very quite large league. We have 14 managers in our league. And so you have to approach, I learned that you have to approach drafting a little more carefully when you're in a large league like this. If you're in an 8-man league like my work league is, you're always going to have people that are good players on waivers. Okay. When you're in a 14-person league like ours, you have to really, you need to think ahead of time and develop a draft strategy. And then, if at all possible, stick to that draft strategy and be confident that it's going to work for you. Okay.
And if you see a guy go for even 13, 14 games and he's new, you want to pick him up immediately.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At times.
Right. And then also in a very large league like ours, I think that you don't necessarily have time to wait on some waiver picks. Like you have to if you grab somebody and it doesn't seem like they're going to work out, if you don't have a tremendous amount of draft stock in them and you're in a large league like ours, I think you need to be fast on the trigger, right?
I think to
Yeah.
me, I would just wait until Hannah, like one of her players, had a bad game. You just cut them. I'd be like, yeah, that's mine right there.
Hannah did do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, recency biases and stuff.
There was one other thing that I took from this league that didn't necessarily have to do with me, but that I saw in some of our other managers, and that is, if you are entering a league, do not automatically assume that you're going to be drafting the same positions of players that you always have for other fantasy leagues. Check out who you're going to be drafting beforehand, because our league features a defensive player.
Yeah,
Okay.
that was very interesting.
It
All
was.
right.
I had no
So
idea when to pick
when,
Micah Parsons.
right. So
Yeah.
if everyone in the league would have done a little bit of research or would have sat down and thought about the vast player universe of defensive players, because we only draft one, so there's only 14 of them out of however many hundreds of defensive players they are.
Means there's a lot of studs out there.
You only need you only need to draft one defensive player. Okay. The thing that I saw in our league was that some of us drafted several defensive players,
I saw
which
that
was
so much.
100 complete unnecessary.
That
Someone had,
happened.
like
Like
five
that was
different defensive
completely
players.
unnecessary.
That happened to me in auto picks.
Right. So you
Because I had a game that day.
right. So what happens is defensive players will be the best person on the board, and then your auto draft will pick them for you because they're the best available
Yeah.
player.
That's why I queued up before
So-
I had to take a test.
Right,
because I was
right.
like, yeah,
Like,
I'm screwed
yeah.
regardless.
Right,
I might as
and-
well get something out of it.
Right.
And
I did
with
get Justin Jefferson.
when you got like
Oh,
8
I'm
players, like you said, Ole, you're gonna have like 1 or 2 guys on your bench maybe that you can lean on. But with 14 leagues or just a big league in general, you're gonna have to quick think. I can't speak right now. Jeez.
Quick think.
You have to quick think.
Yeah, quick
That's
think.
right. You got to
There you
quick
go.
think.
Just gotta think quickly. That's what I was trying to say.
Uh-huh.
And if you see a guy who looks good on tape, or just, I don't know, you think is going to produce good numbers, or just seems like a hit or miss,
Mhm.
take him. And I feel like that's some things that like new players or even old players on fantasy are worried about. They're like, oh, well, he's hit or miss. And I'm like, that's the thing. He misses, you get 2 or 3 points. But if he hits, you could get 20,
Right.
25, 30, 33. And like that is
Like
game changing.
Mike Evans in a
Yeah,
normal
Mike
year
Evans.
is
Yeah.
very, very streaky. This
Super
season he was much more consistent, I think. I
Yeah,
didn't
I know, and I
I
Yeah.
stayed
traded
away
him,
from him
I
for that
traded
for
him,
that reason.
and I got Michael Thomas in
Yeah.
return. I got
Uh-oh.
scammed.
That was
Oh.
that was an incredibly bad.
Wait, no, wait, no. I traded DK with Michael Thomas. I got Javonte Williams though, and he balled out.
Mm.
Oh, you got okay.
All right.
Okay.
Okay.
That's not bad.
I don't
So
have to give up Pacheco though.
So was there this season, was there a player that you drafted who you were very, very confident in that wound up not performing at all?
T Higgins.
T. Higgins.
I
Nick
think
Chubb,
almost any Bengals player, really, to be
Yeah.
honest.
Saquon Barkley. Basically, my first
Well,
picks.
yeah.
Besides Keenan Allen. Keenan Allen did so well.
Now, Keenan Allen was amazing this year. If you drafted Keenan Allen, you were so much the man. It was unbelievable.
Yeah.
So that was good. Yeah, Nick Chubb,
Still not
ouch.
drafting him next year.
That one hurt. I lost by 0.3 that week.
That was rough.
Yeah.
My other league, I had McCaffrey and Chubb. I was like, oh, I'm gonna run the league, and then he got hurt, and I was like, shoot.
Yeah.
I got Kyron Williams off of waivers. And I was like,
See, now that was a great waiver pick, and you did that pretty early in the season.
I think Notre Dame.
I watched.
Right, he was
I just
hurt
knew
for a
once
couple weeks.
once he got carries over Cam Akers, he was gonna take that job.
Before that 70-20 blowout, I picked up Raheem Mostert via a waiver, and I think the week after I did like a small trade. I think DJ Moore for Breece Hall. So
interesting.
that's how I somehow managed to go 8-6.
Okay. Sometimes trading works out pretty well. In a league of our size, you almost had to try to rely on trading rather than waivers, which is a difficult situation because a lot of times people don't like to trade their players.
That's very much true.
Like, I asked for what would Hannah want for Puka Nacua, and she said Justin Jefferson.
Ooh.
And I was like, Jesus Christ, no.
You got to start. Well, you got to start high. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, if you would have.
But like, she was like, I'm only taking Justin
That's
Jefferson.
the thing.
She cut down every other offer.
Okay.
That's one thing you got to keep in mind.
Draft or a very good trading strategy.
That's one thing you got to keep in mind with traders, though, is that many of them, there are normally, you can tell which players are off limits. Like if you have CMC, Tyreek Hill, or just a guy who's in the top five, you're not trading him.
There's certain players that you can ask for.
But
sometimes you'll notice that somebody leaves a pretty good person on their bench regularly, and a lot of times that's the best. That's your best option. Is go after
Collins a lot.
Right, go after some kind of a bench player that they have.
Which I hate because he went to Michigan, and I love my Wolverine.
But I mean, if you try to trade for, let's say, I don't know, someone like Puka Nacua, Jalen Warren, knowing people, they'll try and be like, okay, that's cool, but I don't know, give me like,
well, the thing is, the thing is that you have to try to trade apples for apples. Like you need to look at your draft and try to figure out which player you drafted in a similar position as them, because it's all, unless you're just trying to get somebody they picked up off of waivers, the value of that player is going to be their draft stock that they have in them. So you can't necessarily offer somebody you picked up on waivers for their second or third pick. I mean, it just doesn't, they're never going to go for that.
And also the first pick almost never seems to work out. Jonathan Taylor last year just had
absolutely. When if that's Jefferson got hurt, if you have I hate to have the first pick of the draft because it's almost always wrong.
Not draft Tyreek Hill if you get the first pick next year. I'm sorry. You probably will, and I would too, but he's going to get injured or he's just going to have a big down year.
Tyreek Hill. And I know he's been so terrific this year, but I still have questions about Tua. I really do.
It's a toss-up between him and CMC.
The league is going to figure out what the Dolphins are doing, and I don't think they're going to do very well in the playoffs. And that's just me.
Right. A lot of times we learn lessons about ourselves while we're playing fantasy football, too, that don't necessarily have to do with fantasy football. Like, I learned when I started playing fantasy football that I'm not patient enough. I'm kind of like you were talking about with Hannah, where somebody has a down couple 2-3 games, and I'm awfully fast on the draw to go ahead and replace them.
Yeah.
So sometimes you have to learn to be a little bit more patient. That's what I learned about myself, is that I'm not patient enough.
And you also don't want to invest invest in one player. Like if you have a Devontae Adams,
don't put all your eggs in one basket.
Don't put I'd rather have a bunch of players that can get me 10 to 15 points than just one or two players that can get me 20 or 25 points. Because I mean, if they underperform, you're kind of done.
Right.
Pretty much.
So you want to balance your team as well as you can, especially with that running and wide receiver.
That's kind of what I was going for with the draft strategy, is that you have to decide what players. I mean, obviously running backs are extremely important, so I always draft running backs first.
But running backs are also risky because
they are
more likely to get hurt.
There's a risk reward for running backs, but you almost, the chances of you finding a good wide receiver on waivers is pretty high.
It is.
I mean, you can, for instance, last year, Christian Watson for the Packers
I got
started
Josh Downs
going
waivers.
off partway through the season.
He was good.
And this year it was the same thing. The Niku,
Tank Dell as well.
all of Tank Dell before he got hurt.
Yeah.
There was several wide receivers that started playing very well partway through the season. So my contention is that you even though it's a risk, you have to put a lot of draft stock into running backs, and you also this year was even more apparent that you need to put a lot of draft stock into tight ends, because there were even less tight ends this season that did very well than in previous years, to be completely honest.
Dalton Schultz had a good year.
Yeah.
For a while. And he gave me zero.
He got hurt.
Right. He had a couple of bad weeks and then got hurt recently.
And I do think I think the safest one is, quarterback. I had Sam Howell on my bench, so I was doing fine. But running backs, I think that's the most risky. As you said, wide receivers, you find them on waivers, there's a good chance they do well. You could wait until week 8 and you're still going to find a receiver.
Absolutely. You're not going to find a running back unless somebody gets hurt, and then it's just it's just a waiver competition.
He might not be a number 1 wide receiver, but he could be a number 2 wide receiver, a flex wide receiver. Either way, he's getting into your fantasy
And the
team.
things with wide receivers is that a lot of times your primary wide receiver draws all the best coverage. Yeah. So you're really not that bad off having the second guy in the lineup rather than the marquee.
That was my thing with Josh Downs, because Pittman, he's a terrific wide receiver and he's severely underrated.
And I actually
starts taking notice of him, Josh Downs is going to get open more often.
I got a ton of points out of Michael Pittman Jr. this year. I had him on one of my leagues, and he did very well for me.
But by far the most important thing in fantasy football is you cannot be last. You just can't. All right,
you can't be the last.
The punishment of fantasy football is brutal.
Yeah, I've never had to do one of those because I don't finish last because I'm a scrub.
Well, you don't. It's a random draw. Theoretically, your draft is a random draw unless somebody sets it. So you could very well end up in the last spot.
Sorry, not last pick. Last place.
Oh, last place.
The last place.
The last place finish. The punishments can be brutal.
Right. We didn't set anything up for that.
Ice bucket challenge or something like
that. I did not pay attention. I would. I barely.
Thomas, back in the day, do you ever do the cinnamon challenge?
I never did it. For the person who got last year, they had to eat a wing with 800,000 Scoville, hot wings.
Or what about the death chip? What is it called?
I don't know what it is, but it
eat one chip with the ghost pepper stuff on it.
Ghost pepper, thank you.
Yeah, I guess we'll have to set up some kind.
I'm not eating a ghost pepper for a journalism league. That's
no,
not happening.
I don't think you should have. Really.
I don't know why I'm saying that. I'm not going to.
Even then, I think the worst punishment we could do is just make someone wear a T-shirt saying I suck at fantasy football.
I think
that could
it could be arranged.
Right. I think we could probably get a couple of those made up.
Are we giving that to Josh? Josh finished last, right?
No, I think
I did.
I think the person sitting next to you.
Yeah, I probably.
Oh my God! I gotta buy you a T-shirt.
He's 2 for.
Wait, did your Secret Santa buy you a T-shirt?
Yeah, sure, fair enough. I didn't pay attention this year to my
okay, that's a lesson. Always pay attention. If you're gonna play fantasy, pay attention.
You should set your lineup.
Yeah, set your lineup. That's super important.
I honestly forgot about this fantasy.
Dude, it's a courtesy thing, bro. Set your lineup.
Well, I actually don't care if I'm playing against somebody that doesn't set their lineup. I think it's great.
I think it's an easy win. It just doesn't feel as good.
Yeah, it just shows that you don't care. Yeah. Anyway, we do care enough that we're not going to run over time today because we do have a holiday party to prepare for. So
we do.
We're going to get the heck out of here and wish all of our audience a very, very Merry Christmas and a good holiday season. We're going to be back with more in about mid-January. Until then, check out our site at nevalleynews.org. Also, you can keep up with us on social media at Northeast Valley News. So try those things out. Actually, nevalleynews.org is our social media.
.org.
Yeah, to correct.
It's not .org. That's our website.
Yeah.
Wait.
Our social.
Oh
our social,
my God!
My bad.
Right. Our social media tag is nevalleynews.org. So check us out on Instagram, X, Facebook.
No, we call it. It's still Twitter.
You're
don't
still
care.
calling it
Wow.
Twitter. Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, thanks for being with us. Have a Merry Christmas, happy holiday season, whatever you
celebrate.
Yeah, whatever you celebrate. Enjoy it and
Happy
have a nice
Hanukkah.
time. Happy Hanukkah
Yeah.
for everybody.
Yeah.
There you go. And
Kwanzaa.
obviously, until then, be safe out there, for goodness sakes.
See you in a month.
Bye now.